The double episode finale of the 1000-Year Blood War's second season last weekend absolutely rocked my world, and Senjumaru Shutara was at the center of its greatness. Frankly, it could have been any member of Squad Zero, but Senjumaru was chosen to flex specifically by Nimaiya to handle Yuhaba's royal guard. The Schutzstaffel's eventual fates weaved into intricate traps to ensnare them in the very fabric of her Bankai. Today we have a lot to discuss. My recent content have been very intensive, fully scripted analyses that really rack my brain, so I haven't had the chance to just wind back and discuss some things that I love in a more casual fashion. I want to give some very brief thoughts on the anime production, how much I appreciate the exclusive added content, my expectations for season 3, and possibly even more. The main focus though will of course be Senjumaru Shutara and her Bankai. I have a bunch of notes on my screen, but for the most part this is unscripted and on the fly. I just want to talk some greatness. Including the previous week's episode 24, the final 3 of season 2 are dedicated to the battle between the Royal Guard of Shinigami and the Royal Guard of Quincy. A battle that was largely off-screen in the manga and has been elevated tenfold by the anime, supervised by Kubo himself. The amount of added material here is astonishing. There's like 10 minutes worth of brand new scenes that weren't featured in the manga due to the various complications Kubo was facing at the time. These episodes have given us a bunch of things to discuss, too much for me to cover in this video today, so instead we're going to focus on some key things which have piqued my interest. Something this battle has done for Bleach is drastically impact our perception of power and death in the series. Nimaiya tastes death several times. Senjumaru stitches him back to life like it's nothing. He slices himself with the sharpest blade in the world to circumvent Asukin's death dealing and has his blood replenished effortlessly by Kirinji. Hikifune's womb is a prison of reishi. Its nigh indestructible branches feed off attacks, growing more and more powerful. The anime really delivers upon that initial hype of meeting this elite force that reside in the heavens above even Soul Society. 5 individuals whose combined force supposedly outclasses the entirety of the Gote 13. A very hard thing to believe as a manga reader, given the ridiculous heights many of the captains reach, and of course the way Squad Zero are dealt with. And don't get me wrong, they'll still obviously lose here, and whether or not Squad Zero are stronger than the Gote 13 together at the end of the manga is a whole nother discussion in of itself, but the added context of their handicaps and their incredible efforts before ultimately losing is very, very appreciated. Squad Zero are the height of Shinigami. Each of their 5 members are the pioneers of essential aspects to the Shinigami's power and lifestyle. Names, blades, blood and healing, reishi, and of course the Shihakusho, which is held to a high enough regard that it's considered a key part of a Shinigami. It's the cultural contributions and further implications that make Squad Zero so important to the story of Bleach. These 5 individuals literally make up the essence of a Shinigami, whether that's emblematically or literally. It is a requirement in becoming a member of Squad Zero to create something never before seen in the Soul Society. From the Zanpakuto that every Shinigami wields, to things like artificial souls, to even the name of everything. Ichibe played a significant role in the creation of the current universe, the fixed shapes of life and death. He is the ultimate maintainer of the status quo both Aizen and Yuhaba fought to overthrow. The monk who calls the real name, an epithet personally granted to Ichibe by Reo himself. Or so he claims. This is not a man that can be trusted. Ichibe named everything in Soul Society. He controls names themselves across time and space. The man most likely to have named the Soul Society, or even Shinigami themselves. He is the one true leader of the Shinigami, fulfilling this role unbeknownst to the common man. They are to believe the Soul King rules from up above, but rather he is just a figurehead, a senseless cornerstone who Squad Zero claim to follow, and Squad Zero follow Ichibe. He is their leader, clearly set apart from the rest. He is not included in the blood oath seal that reduces the power of the other 4 members in this royal guard. Oetsu Nimaiya is the man who created every Zanpakuto, who wears the name God of the Sword. The Ni, which is Japanese for the number 2 in his name, implies that Nimaiya is the 2nd oldest and 2nd member of Squad Zero, following Ichibe, who has the number 1 in his name. This is the man responsible for the swords that function as the extension of a Shinigami's soul. Tenjiro Kirinji is the hot spring demon. The contribution he made to Shinigami culture is the creation of Kaido, the healing spells that define the Gotei 13's 4th division. Kiryu Hikifune is the most recent addition, bestowed with the title Ruler of Grain. Her contribution came in the form of the artificial soul, to take Reiatsu from one source and inject it into a different body. And lastly, Senjumaru Shutara, the Great Weaver, the one to have created the Shihakusho, the uniform of all members in the Gotei 13. Given how Senjumaru's threads are shown in these episodes to be more than just threads, I think it's clear that the Shihakusho is a reishi constitution that has other currently unknown benefits to the Shinigami beyond its cultural significance. Senjumaru can manipulate reishi as she weaves. Her threads make reishi itself submit to them, considering how she was able to manipulate Uryu's arrows after they were fired, or how she was able to manipulate the womb made of reishi and craft bindings to use against Gerard. She can also control both fire and ice in the same Bankai, something that's generally considered impossible. Rose achieved a similar effect, but his Bankai's abilities stem from illusions. Senjumaru's Bankai actually produces both of these opposing elements, both fire and ice, seemingly bypassing the single type restriction of Elemental Zanpakuto. Of course, I don't think she has an Elemental Zanpakuto, and that's why she can bypass it. The thumbnail of this video has the words Weaver of Fate alongside Senjumaru. What exactly do I mean by that? If you didn't already notice, Senjumaru's Bankai foreshadows the fates of all the Schutzstaffel whilst also being perfectly suited to capitalize on their respective weaknesses. Lily Barrow shoots himself in a room enclosed with 8 mirrors, which is a clear nod to his eventual fate against Shunsui and Nanawo. The Shinken Hakkyoken, the divine 8-mirror sword, reflects Lily's power against him, sealing his fate, and that is foreshadowed in this Bankai. Panaida sinking in black sand was one that I struggled to find an explanation for at first. I guess it's because he can't control every grain of sand with his nerves, which is why it's a fitting punishment for him, but the real beauty of it comes in the fact that Mayuri's surname, Kurotsuchi, literally translates to black soil, and of course he is the one to ultimately seal Panaida's fate alongside Nemu. Askin is crushed by 3 spiky metal things, which represent the 3 opponents he faces off against in Yoruichi, Grimmjow, and Urahara. There's also the fact that Askin's death dealing is hopeless in the face of inorganic substances, so he is crushed by metal. Gerard is the biggest physical threat among the Schutzstaffel, so Senjumaru shuts him down by freezing him, which foreshadows his eventual battle against the captains and how Hitsugia freezes him in a near identical fashion. Yugaram's shield cannot block omnidirectional fire, and so he is surrounded by literal fire, which also feeds into his relationship with Bazb and how that ties into his ultimate fate against Uryu. Uryu is the most unique case because unlike the rest of the Schutzstaffel, he lives through this war. His punishment is being forced to relive his most traumatic memory, when his father dissects his mother's corpse for the sake of the Quincy, to create the silver arrow from the Thombrus within her heart to ultimately be used by Uryu himself in the final battle against Yuhaba. The Quincy emblem literally sucks the life out of Uryu, as much like his father, he has always been a victim of this bloodline. This is a really surface level explanation of Uryu's stuff, but I feel like I should refrain since the upcoming cores are guaranteed to give us a lot of new Uryu material to discuss. So these are some pretty uncanny similarities between these punishments Senjumaru delivers and the Quincy's fates. Is the function of her Bankai foreshadowing how the Schutzstaffel get defeated just a symbolic thing, or is it literal? Does Senjumaru have access to these future events or not? I think it's left very open-ended on purpose. We have no real way of answering the aforementioned question, and I think even when Core 3 comes and she is defeated, we still won't have an answer to it. It's just not Kubo's style to, give a clear-cut mechanical explanation of these powers, but there are some clear parallels to be drawn here between Senjumaru and Mayuri, as of course Kubo himself has confirmed they are related. Everything preceding the activation of Senjumaru's Bankai very much feels like something Mayuri would do. She sets up these intricate traps and forces her opponents to use as much of their abilities as possible, to analyze their capabilities and come up with perfect countermeasures. That's why I focused on each of their individual weaknesses when I was going through them. It's very impressive that Senjumaru's Bankai is perfectly suited to counter each of them. But then you factor in the actual aesthetic of her Bankai, the visual symbolism, and the fact her epithet is the Great Weaver. Upon the activation of her Bankai, the area around Senjumaru is enclosed by darkness, while a structure resembling a torii gate rises from the ground. Senjumaru then extends her arms towards the structure as if she's praying, which fits the theme of this Bankai, essentially manifesting a shrine. Hikifune also notes that Senjumaru has 1000 arms, which is most likely a reference to the Guanyin Bodhisattva, a highly revered deity. If I messed up the pronunciation of Bodhisattva, I think I am. I'm probably butchering it, my bad. The gate expands to form a golden loom which produces endless swaths of red cloth that envelop the entire area, which also resembles a red carpet. This release causes tremors across all dimensions, including Soul Society and the human world, probably also Hueco Mundo, but yeah, as Senjumaru herself stated, each of Squad Zero's true power is capable of shaking heaven and earth, and she clearly was not lying. The use of a loom is particularly crucial. In Greek mythology, the Fates are a common motif frequently represented as a trio of goddesses. These three deities shape the destiny of each mortal, often expressed in textile metaphors such as spinning fibers into yarn or weaving threads on a loom, which is exactly what Senjumaru does to the Shueisha. The use of textile metaphors to represent the shaping of destiny isn't exclusive to Senjumaru's Bankai either, as this metaphor is the focal point of Chapter 0 Part A, The Sand, wherein Ichigo compares the powerlessness of humanity when faced with the crushing wheel of fate to grist being ground by a millstone. It's not just Greek mythology either, the loom is a symbol of fate in various cultures. Senjumaru's loom perfectly countered each and every one of the Quincy, weaving their fates and trapping them in the fabric of her Bankai. Now, I seriously doubt that Senjumaru can see into the future, and rather think that her Bankai instinctively allows her to weave the perfect tapestry to seal her victims that corresponds with their eventual fates. To actually facilitate her Bankai and allow her to fight at 100% power, 3 Squad Zero members had to sacrifice themselves, but not Ichibe. He is not included in the Blood Oath seal, which represents the other 4 members of Squad Zero in different patterns. Let's do a quick breakdown of the name of Senjumaru's Bankai, which is apparently so convoluted and complicated that a lot of translators were seriously struggling to make sense of what it entails. Shatatsu Karagara Shigarami no Tsuji. I think I said that right, but that is the name of Senjumaru's Bankai. This word on the screen right now doesn't actually mean anything by itself, it is the context in which it is used where the meaning becomes apparent. In this case, it refers to the act of clothes fluttering. The next is an archaic word for gate, which is fitting seeing as the Squad Zero members are incredibly old. The symbolism here is obvious as Senjumaru's Bankai summons a structure that resembles a torii gate. Again, this by itself doesn't mean anything, but its usage in combination is what gives it meaning. This word typically appears in Buddhist vocabulary, so it's fair to assume that it gives the Bankai's name a sense of spirituality, feeding off the torii gate and Senjumaru as a representation of the Guanyin Bodhisattva. This means thin silk or fabric, which I don't think I need to explain. This means a husk or a shell, which could symbolize various things in this context, and this refers to her shikai, the sewing needle. Its full name translates to thorn that entangles. Sewing needles are often used for entwining, but this word also has the meaning of coil, which is used specifically for sewing machines and looms. Finally, this word is referring to crossroads, which ties into the whole idea of Senjumaru weaving the fates of her victims in this Bankai. I obviously don't speak Japanese, so these translations are not from me. I took these from a Twitter thread by Piku Program, so thank you for letting me use this in the video. I've left a link to it in the description. There's also a very cool Reddit thread in the description that has some slightly different translations of the Bankai, since Japanese is a pretty complex language and this specific naming is pretty confusing. All in all, I am just over the moon, specifically about the additions we've received in this anime adaptation of the 1000-Year Blood War. Seeing as we've adapted almost 2/3 of the arc in half of the total episodes, we can expect many more additions in the next 2 seasons, especially in those final volumes where Kubo's health complications were at their worst. It is very exciting stuff, even if I do feel a little blue-balled about not getting to see the full battle between Ichibe and Yuhaba. Pushing that to the 3rd season and allowing the other members of Squad Zero to shine is obviously a far better scenario, but man, I was so ready to see that fight. I have never had a big problem with Squad Zero's performance in the manga, but I definitely understood where the complaints came from and the feeling that Squad Zero were just very disappointing. But with what we just got, I hope I never see those takes again. A few weeks ago, it was leaked that the final episode of the season would be titled A and end with the Soul King being pierced through the chest by Yuhaba. With the way the season finale ended, with a pretty underwhelming finisher, I'm inclined to believe that the decision to push that to the third season was very last minute. That final scene really feels like something that would happen mid-episode. It doesn't even begin to compare to season 1's final scene in terms of sheer production value. It's not bad by any means, but it's definitely not worthy of being the finisher of the season. It just feels off. It feels like it wasn't made for that purpose. And I'm not really mad at that at all. When season 1 ended, we received the teaser for season 2, and that was accompanied by a fixed release date. But this last weekend, when season 2 ended and we got the teaser for season 3, there was no release date, just 2024. I am praying they take as long as they need to work on season 3 and hopefully release it late into the year in like the fall or winter season. Studio Pierrot have been facing challenge after challenge lately, and Bleach's production has taken a heavy hit because of that. The loss of Yoshihiro Kano as action animation director is plain to see for all. His contribution to season 1 was game changing, and unfortunately season 2 has really suffered without him. It's been a shaky ride, but it's not all bad, and I think they've nailed some of the most important elements of the adaptation, like the character designs, music, sound effects, and of course the much appreciated exclusive added content. If you'd like to see a dedicated video specifically on the anime so far, talking about my concerns for the production as well as my overall take on its quality, the good, the bad, the ugly, please let me know in the comment section. I'd love to make a video like that, but I'm not sure if there's an audience for it. With that being said though, I think that's enough for this video. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed me just shooting this shit, talking about some Bleach greatness, and as always, thank you very much for watching.